They were his eyes. And they weren't. Maybe there's something to that ghost business after all, she thought. This isn't one of those movies where the psycho husband chases his screaming wife all around the house. If you decide to go to the police and turn me in, I won't lift a finger to stop you. But I know you've thought about what it would do to the kids. You wouldn't be the woman I married if you hadn't thought about that. What you might not have thought about is what it would do to you. Nobody would believe that you were married to me all these years and never knew. Or at least suspected. You'd have to move away and live on what savings there are, because I've always been the breadwinner, and a man can't win bread when he's in jail. You might not even be able to get at what there is, because of the civil suits. And of course the kids. Stop it, don't talk about them when you talk about this, don't you ever. He nodded humbly, still holding lightly to her forearms. I beat BD once, I beat him for 20 years. 16, she thought again. 16, and you know it. And I can beat him again. With your help, Darce. With your help I can do anything. Even if he were to come back in another 20 years, so what? Big deal. I'd be 73. Hard to go snoot hunting when you're shuffling around in a walker. He laughed cheerily at this absurd image, then sobered again. But, now listen to me carefully, if I were ever to backslide, even one single time, I'd kill myself. The kids would never know, they'd never have to be touched by that. That, you know, stigma, because I'd make it look like an accident. But you'd know? And you'd know why. So what do you say? Can we put this behind us? She appeared to consider. She was considering, in fact, although such thought processes as she could muster were probably not trending in a direction he would be likely to understand. What she thought was, it's what drug addicts say. I'll never take any of that stuff again. I've quit before and this time I'll quit for good. I mean it. But they don't mean it, even when they think they do they don't, and neither does he. What she thought was, what am I going to do? I can't fool him, we've been married too long. A cold voice replied to that, one she had never suspected of being inside her, one perhaps related to the beady voice that whispered to Bob about the snoots it observed in restaurants, laughing on street corners, riding in expensive sports cars with the top down, whispering and smiling to each other on apartment building balconies. Or perhaps it was the voice of the darker girl. "Why can't you?" it asked. "After all, he fooled you." And then what? She didn't know. She only knew that now was now, and now had to be dealt with. "You'd have to promise to stop," she said, speaking very slowly and reluctantly. "Your most solemn, never go back promise." His face filled with a relief so total, so somehow boyish, that she was touched. He so seldom looked like the boy he had been. Of course, that was also the boy who had once planned to go to school with guns. "I would, Darcy. I do promise. I already told you. And we could never talk about this again." "I get that. You're not to send the Duval woman's ID to the police, either." She saw the disappointment, also weirdly boyish, that came over his face when she said that, but she meant to stick to it. He had to feel punished, if only a little. That way he'd believe he had convinced her. Hasn't he? Oh, Darcelyn, hasn't he? I need more than promises, Bobby. Actions speak louder than words.